we're going to jump in and we're going to start with a bit of an interactive session. It's a really weird echo. Just to sort of bring it to life, and then we'll debrief and we'll talk about it later. Before we get going, two caveats. One, for the next 20 minutes or so, I am role playing, so please don't take anything I say serious. It is not really me, I'm role playing. And I first want to introduce you to Chris, who for the purpose of the next 20 minutes or so is our esteemed GM, and he has a few things to say, and then I'll give us the details.
Okay, everybody from Acme Products and Manufacturing Company, it's great to be here. It's great for me to get to spend times with our ops folks and share with you the pillars of our strategy, which you've all heard, which is performance, performance, and performance. All right, we all know we need to do better, and earnings per share has got to improve in the company. So one of those ways, and the reason we're here today, is to improve change over time. Manufacturing change over time is a critical capability for us as an organization. So with that said, John's going to help us do better. And look, we want to win, you want to win, so let's go and win. All right, that's it.
Thank you. Very motivational.
Thank you.
All right, so the first thing you need to know, I need one person from each table to be the timekeeper. Can you grab your stopwatch? And just to synchronize, we're starting now. I'm hitting start. Okay, the time has started. The objective of the exercise is you should have in front of you, I'll use this one, and yes, I'm ruining your time right now. You have one of these things, right? It's set up with a little black disc in there. This group is off to a bad start. No, nobody look over there. All right, what you need to do is you need to remove this black disc and replace it with the red one, okay? And we are timing, that's why you just start at the timer. So the clock is running. A couple of really, really important things. It needs to be exactly 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter from the top of the red to the bottom of the metal. It needs to be perfectly centered on the platform so that it is equal distance. And it needs to be tight, more than finger tight. It actually needs to be, I'll leave that up there. It needs to be wrench tight. If I can pick it up and move it, and if I shake it and it falls apart, it hasn't passed. I am the quality control. If it doesn't pass, if I don't say it's good, it's not good. And the objective is to complete this in the shortest time possible. And we're already a minute and 20 in, so you may want to start. By the way, there's a tool room over here in the corner. Esteemed tool manager, Sebastian. You can go talk to him. He's got wrenches. We had a problem with a lot of wrenches getting stolen, so you're not allowed to have more than 2 at a time. So if he gives you the wrong one, he's not very good at his job. Just make sure you get the right one. Are you guys? Do you have anyone going to get wrenches?
We don't have wrenches. There are wrenches here?
They're in the tool room. You do need wrenches. You won't be able to make it tight enough without.
Somebody for that.
It just needs to be, if you measure here, 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 it needs to be perfectly centered, and then that needs to be
Perfectly centered on the base?
the red, yeah, equidistance from those 3 sides, and then 10 centimeters or 10 millimeters, 1 centimeter from the
distance from these 3
Oh, it needs
yeah from the edges, the D.
10 millimeters from the top of the
Yeah,
cylinder?
the top of the disc to the bottom of the metal, and it needs to be solid, right? So if I pick it up and I will pick it up. I'll be back in 1 sec. Guys, I think I made a mistake. I realized it's actually plus or minus 1. Oh. So you were within 1. Yeah, you guys are good. So I think you're done. What time is it? 8:30, 8:31 is what I have. Yep. So just make your note that you were 8 minutes and 31 seconds. Well, you guys aren't done till I say you're done.
But if you have to
I'm role playing. I'm being a jerk on purpose.
Do you need to put all of these things back on that we're all off when you shake it now?
Well, I'm not going to shake those off. Okay, you guys are good. All right, what's your time?
8:28 was when I started. Thank you. Thank you.
8:41. I'll be nice. I got 9 minutes. Well, you think your supervisor would have given you more training or something? Are you guys done yet? Because you're holding up the whole group now.
I know.
Somebody else just threatened to unionize. So.
Oh, no. We're bad that way.
Apparently.
Keep losing our
This is
our
too
little
high.
knobs on the bottom.
Yeah, this is like 13 millimeters. So, you gotta lower that. I'll give you another couple minutes, and if we don't get there, I'll just call it at 12. So this group in the back over here, you guys can be number 1. What was your time?
8 minutes 31
Okay, and this group?
8:41.
8:41.
Although we were done at 8:28.
Don't blame quality control for your problems.
We're not blaming, we're stating factual evidence.
And
Fabulous. 10:28.
all right. Is it good enough?
It's definitely not good enough, John. And I don't know what needs to change, but we've got to do better. And clearly, aligned with our strategy, performance transparency is here, so we can all see how we've done. But we need to do better.
Yeah. All right.
John, if we can't do
I got
better,
it.
we can
I
find
got it.
somebody who can.
We're going to
Just
do better. Thank you.
keep the promise.
All right, guys, I'm getting a lot of crap from the boss. We got to do better. So we're going to try this again. We're going to go from the red back to the black in a few minutes. But before we do, I need you guys, I'm going to give you some time to practice so that we know what we're doing. We're going to strategize a bit. So I guess the first thing is, what would you do different? What would you do different the second time around? And then I'm going to ask you what you think you can accomplish.
Ask everyone in the room who has a spatial engineering design background to see where people who have dealt with tools
Okay.
could potentially help.
Great idea. So we're going to ask around and see who else has done something. Okay. Other ideas? How can we cut the time?
Where we have to limit the amount of like measuring,
Yep.
it just, basically this system is set up to where you just like put it in place, tighten, and you're good.
Okay.
There's something like there, like. where
So
you-
you're blaming the quality guy. I'm too slow to show
I'm
up.
not blaming you, I'm blaming us, like, it's not
So
that we keep doing
the
that.
question is,
All right. I'm glad it's my fault, but it's a good suggestion. Maybe you'll look for another job later. How about over here?
so we're looking at cumulative time for the room. Is the goal is to reduce that
It is to have the lowest time possible, is all that I was
as
told.
a company?
Sure.
Or as a team, or
I-
is it a, yeah.
Should it
Is
be
it a
a group?
competition
Do
or?
we have to have a team, or can we have a larger team?
All right. So,
We have to do all three of these.
so we do need to do all three.
Okay,
And the goal is the lowest time possible,
okay.
right? And we need to be able to do each, we should measure each one independently, but it's entirely up to you guys. By the way, I will tell you, you are the first team that, you are the first group that has gotten to that conclusion before, usually within the 3 rounds. Normally the 3 groups default into we are competing against each other. But if you notice, none of us have ever deliberately had not said you're competing against each other. But normally that's what happens, it defaults into that. But let's keep playing so you can work together. That's great. What else would you do?
I would have the tools available to us at the table, so we don't have to go over there and get the tools that they already have.
Yeah, you can get, so,
Correct sizes.
yeah, so you can get as many wrenches as you want. You can get the correct sizes. I'll let you do all that before we start the next round. I think that's great. So just figure out what sizes you need and Sebastian will give them to you.
Since I had an issue with the QC process, I would want to streamline that.
Okay.
So that we bring it to you and you can look at it, since we're doing individual team times.
Yep.
And so we don't lose time walking from one table to the other, so everybody has a better shot.
Okay.
I think I would assign jobs. one person on the back bolts, one person on the front, one person
Yep.
on tape measure.
Okay. Yeah, I heard somebody else mention something about training. Would have liked to have some training. So so let me stop there. Why don't you guys figure out what tools you need, figure out the roles, who's going to do what, practice. If you want, you can practice going from red to black, and then you can go back to red. When we're ready to go, I would like it set up with the red. But if you want, I'll give you about 5 minutes or so to just play around with it, practice, figure out the best, how you're going to do it. And then it's 3:03. I'll give you 6 minutes. So at 3:10, I would like it ready to go to switch from red to black. But you can practice now and do whatever you want. If you need to get parts, if you need to practice and figure out timing and everything. Okay? Great. All right. Ready, set, go.
Done.
Okay.
We said done. We said done first.
That was good. All right.
All right, what do you got on the clock?
Yeah. Team
666.
Oh,
6
round
under
down, we'll round down.
Need a new name for the team.
Yeah, we'll round down.
6.7 seconds.
Yeah, it did take a second.
Round down 6 seconds.
It was 6.
All right. 6 seconds. This team.
We have 6 seconds too.
6 seconds.
We were behind that. 6.03.
This
We're
group.
calling them both 6.
9 seconds. All right. So not bad. I'm going to stop there. If you actually got to practice a little bit more, I had to cut that short. So normally you'd have more time. You actually could have got it. You guys were all set up. Like this one over here is set up. You could go pretty quickly in like a second or so. All right. So I'll come out of character. So normally I use this game actually as a lean teaching. I've done this with maintenance guys, with mechanics. I've done it as part of shutdowns and turnarounds. But I started using it about 7 or 8 years ago, actually in our model factory in Atlanta. And I used it to start teaching around culture and culture change and what happens in a team environment. So I would just like your observations first. So what worked? What didn't, and what didn't work? What were some of the frustrations? What were some of the thoughts going through your mind as you were going through this? Here, I'll take this down.
Not knowing what tools are available, like having to guess or ask, and not just.
Yep. Lack of clarity. Yeah, how clear were we up front? I mean, Chris, you were the CEO.
I said we wanted to improve performance.
Yeah.
Wasn't it clear? Didn't everyone know exactly
Earnings
what
per
they
share
needed to do?
specifically.
There's
I
no
was
goal,
detailed.
there's no, this can be done in a second, it should be done in a second,
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
All that information wasn't brought to the,
I told you at the end.
yeah.
And the training, right? If you had shown us how to do it, then we could have done it.
Yeah, no capability building. We just threw you in, said the clock's already running, and you're already late. Day 1 on the job. Congratulations, you're already behind. You're not clear what you need to do. Sorry?
That was anxiety producing. I mean, it
Yeah.
became kind of a safe place for, improvement or experimentation or anything.
What was going through your mind?
Safe to fail.
The threat that you made to fire me?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I said I was going to fire you. Someone else would do the job better if you can't.
I think it was
Our whole
interesting.
team's gonna be fired, so.
Yeah, somebody wanted to unionize after the first round.
This would have gone to 12 minutes.
If we had unionized at this point, we would have clearly established the norm.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But I think the lack of encouragement, I mean, it was, you were setting, the expectation you were setting is like, you're a bunch of losers, I'm gonna cut you, and,
Yeah.
Indispensable, yeah.
dispensable.
Dispensable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you said someone did it in 1 second,
Yep.
and that Mr. Toolmaster would be helpful, then you, all of a sudden you have, okay, well, I know it's possible, it's not impossible, so
Yep.
there's a way to do it, and there's probably someone who knows the answer, maybe we can just ask him and he'll tell us. And then also other tables have figured things
Right.
out, so understanding that it's not just us, but there's more resources, and that we're not being set up to fail, just makes you a lot
Right.
less likely to fail.
Well, also too, like,
It did take us till the end to get there, but yes.
I think we just took what you said at face value, nobody asked questions. Nobody asked, well,
Yeah.
what's the expectation from you? Does anybody in this room, has anybody done this before? Who's the best person in this room to do this? The tool guy, this guy, we should have asked him, right?
Yeah,
So-
how did you feel over here?
I was getting bullied.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were
Whoa,
part of
whoa.
the
I
team?
was told multiple times that I didn't know anything.
People treatment incident, we'll record it.
How often does that happen? Right? Now, you guys did something phenomenal that I often don't see. After the first round, you asked questions, to your point, and you asked, are we actually competing against each other, or are we all the same company? And what do we tell you? No, same company. It was
But you're
great.
forgetting the teams were still, because the
What-
way you're tracking the metrics
Well-
does not indicate that we're a team because the scores aren't cumulative.
Has anyone ever seen a performance board that looks like this in a company or on a shop floor?
Comparison of sites, comparison of departments, comparison of regions.
Inadvertently, right? Unintended consequence. This has created, like, I loved it that after the first wave, you got up and started helping them. And then if you heard Chris and I talking with the mics still on, what I was pointing out was, despite that breakthrough that you all realized, you immediately went back to working within your teams and back in your silos.
But you know what that was about, I think? That was about the time constraint.
Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
we would have,
You don't need 20 people to do this.
yeah, if any of us had felt there wasn't that time constraint, then I think we probably would have powwowed a little bit more and
Because it
shared.
would have taken time to
Yeah,
powwow,
yes,
get the best
yes.
of
Right,
kind of all
well,
of
and
our-
for us, we established communication, like, the first question I asked is who has engineering, spatial, like, who
Yep.
has a background in dealing with tools and mechanics?
Yep.
And so we were able to do that in the time constraint quickly, but for the entire room, I don't think we had the time to get there. Maybe we did, we didn't try,
We didn't try.
yeah,
We could have all been in the same conversation, actually.
Yeah.
We're doing it now.
Yep.
But it seems like we couldn't.
It seemed like you couldn't, right?
yeah.
It immediately set in. Typically what happens here is it immediately sort of sets in that you're competing, you're in silos, this guy's a jerk, and he won't give you anything, right? Even though he's just doing what I told him to do. You hate me, because I'm the QC guy who won't trust you, and I'm slow to show up, right? Lynn was ready to kill me because I didn't even think she could operate a timer. I warned you, I was acting. I'm really sorry.
Well, the other thing I will say is, I didn't, like, after you kind of set it up, like, it's us against, quote unquote, you, right? Anything that you said after that, I'm like, really, can I trust the tool? I'm not so sure, right?
Right.
So there was like a built-in kind of skepticism.
Yeah, because what did I care about?
Yeah,
What did I
maybe
tell you I
there
was caring about?
Maybe they can-
I didn't want to get, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to make him happy, and you guys were just going to do what I told you.
And the minute he said that, your trust in him
Went away.
went away. Because his integrity wasn't there to help the company, it was there to look out for number one.
I thought he was caught between a rock and a hard place too, like, I didn't feel like you were empowered to disagree with him, and
So you had some empathy for
I
me.
did have some empathy.
Thank,
I did think the tool guy was.
a little, yeah, just a little, but I appreciate that. I was probably scared for my own job.
I lost a lot of confidence in you when you let us fudge on the numbers and say it's good enough, he's watching, so let's just go ahead.
Yeah.
We really hadn't done it yet.
Yeah,
We're
we
like,
weren't.
We're gonna pass it. You know, like, dang.
But mimicking real life,
Yeah, it's full-time.
And any of these things happen all the time, right? So here's the big takeaway from this, right?
Can I say one more
Yeah, of
thing?
course.
When you said you trust us to keep the time, I was like, yes. You know, because I think that's what we're all looking for. And an environment is to be trusted to do the job that we're being asked to do, even if we have no idea what we're doing. And the moment you said that, I was like, okay, she's capable. She's only got one hand, but she can do it.
But I think that also goes to, there's a freedom, there's an allowance then for exploration. It's very interesting that in groups, that we don't take that on ourselves. I think we are socialized to follow directions, and I think, you know.
Of course.
we're socialized by a management ideal or culture, which was command and control for a long time. I will tell you what to do, you will have a target, you either deliver it or we'll get someone who can.
Yeah.
which when we think about that, how does that resonate at the front lines? Resonates, I'm not empowered, right? And this place isn't going to be logical. And I really shouldn't expect trust. And I shouldn't expect help if I raise my hand either. Whereas if we're looking to transform really the culture of a company and make it work better, those things have to work in the opposite.
And I think this notion of time, just really quickly, I think what you just described is a very, very hard thing to put in place when the time pressure feels so real like it just did. Like if at least, if there had been more time, I think we probably would have gone to a point where we would have been really uncomfortable, we would have been curious and experimenting a little bit more. And
Right,
I think we don't give
But yeah, how often do you actually, pull people out of their job, or even not even pull them out, but just give them time to,
them the time.
to be innovative and creative?
But I would challenge and say, time's always going to be short. What if I had been up here and say, hey, time's going to be short, but we're in this together. And what matters is us figuring out the best way to do this, okay? And we're a team. And look, Sebastian's pretty new, but I'm sure he's got something he can contribute, all right? If we create that trusting relationship, right? Now it's like we're all in a game together, and yeah, there's short time, but we're all pumped up and we're out to win, as compared with I'm under stress because either I do this or I'm going to get fired. Very different.
I actually ran this game once with a bunch of maintenance guys. They were doing an outage the next day. This was a better story. I've also done it with maintenance guys where they use their own tools and complained about it. But I used this as a training exercise the day before an outage, and the outage was scheduled for 14 hours. And we told them, we said, look, you guys are doing the outage tomorrow. We're not going to change anything. It's too late. You guys got a plan. Just execute it the way that you want. But we're going to take 2 hours today. We're going to learn the concept of SMED. We're going to train this game. And just keep that in your mind and identify opportunities. So then afterwards, we'll come back and we'll talk about them, and maybe the next outage will make it better. They resequenced the entire outage in real time and did the 14 outage in 8 hours, right? Just because they were like, you asked us to, right? You gave us permission to do it. And the whole time, by the way, they were like, management's a bunch of idiots. They told us to do it in 14 hours, but if we just did this, 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 and this, we can do it in 8. And we gave them permission to do it, and they did it on their own. This was my cheat sheet, by the way, which is, and I'll get to it in a second, but within McKinsey, we have a tool where we measure organizational health called the OHI. Some of you have probably seen it. And within it, we talk about 37 management practices. And you have to be good enough at all of them, and certain ones matter. In this kind of a setting, these are some of the ones that show up that you can actually see sort of the good versions and the bad versions of. So we talked about strategic clarity, right? Which is how clear were the instructions, not only the instructions, but what were you trying to achieve? What was the purpose? How could you contribute to it? Actually just taking time to make that clear up front is really important. Knowledge sharing, right? You guys started to ask the tool room, you started to help each other, but there were mindsets that set in really, really quickly that said you couldn't do that. He's they, not we, right? Where's the we versus they? And even when we told you we are all one team, it was still we versus they. It was too late. Yeah, we'd already established you were competing.
It's not the dominant culture.
Role clarity, right? When I told you to start, you didn't know who was taking time, who was doing that. By the way, for the timers, how useful did you feel? Not very, right? For the first 5 minutes, you were sat on that side of the table just watching, looking really bored. Everybody else said, Shannon's like, whatever. Did you even notice? Not really, right?
I was like, there are too
No,
many people.
Shannon was all into it, and you were sat over there completely bored. So just being clear about roles and balancing work, you probably were bored too, right?
I was feeling quite anxious for the group, so I was like.
You were sharing their anxiety. Performance transparency, we talked about this, right? I created a board. What happened when I asked you to name your teams?
There was buy-in. I felt like we were.
Part of a team, yeah. It solidified the we at the table, and it enforced the they at the other tables, right? I did that on purpose, right? This is, by the way, it's not that rare, right? You walk through a factory, you will see shift A is, are the washers, and shift B is the red team, and God knows they'll never tell each other what they do. They all have, I've worked a lot in like refineries and chemical plants and stuff, and typically what happens at the start of a shift is the shift will walk in, and the first thing they do is completely reset everything and grumble for the first hour that those idiots on the shift before had no idea how to run the place. They get it lined out, they run the plant, and then at the end of the shift, they leave, the other team comes back in, they switch everything back and complain. It's the same idea, right? And then bottom-up innovation or frontline innovation and creative and entrepreneurialism. And we talked about this, that you got to create time for this stuff. You have to create space, and you have to give people permission to do it. If you don't, right, if you ask somebody to check their brain at the door, come in and follow the rules and do what we told you, that's exactly what they'll do, but you will get very little from them. And so finding the ability to do that. Often, by the way, I do a lot of work in unionized, it's funny that we're like, oh, we're going to unionize. I do a lot of work in environments that are unionized, and I have had positive and negative experience in both, right? But typically, from my view of things, the stronger the union is actually a sign of weak leadership, right? And actually, in this case, I was a terrible supervisor, which immediately forced you guys to go, God, we got to protect ourselves against this guy, right? So you were trying to find a way, and it's, there's obviously history in different sites, but, and then here's my final takeaway on this one. Look how quickly culture just set in this room, right? You guys have established a frontline culture in your teams and a way of thinking and a way of beliefs that is now here in about 30 minutes. Imagine what it's like in your minds that have been operating for 10 years. Or your plants have been operating for 60 years and are 3 generations, right? I've been in plants where I had someone who started 6 weeks before looked me in the face and said, that's not how we do things around here at X. And the name X that he quoted was the previous owner who had sold the plant 16 years before. But that was the culture of the place. So let me stop there if you have something to add.
I always have something to add.
Of course. Keep going, and then I'll cover the last.
Let me just make
slides.
one quick comment, which is why this is so relevant. Look, I was one of the people leading a big transformation in a company that spun out of DuPont. The culture was 200 years old, all right? And the company that had come out had to change really fast and really aggressively. Now, something I learned through that process that makes this really relevant, if I could use a pen for a second. Here's what I learned, and I never knew this beforehand. Imagine a triangle. Senior leadership sees 10% of the opportunities to improve a company. The board has you come and call in people like McKinsey, who benchmark and show you maybe 20% of the opportunities. You're not looking at this area, you're not looking at that. The people in your company at the front lines, whether those front lines are interfacing with procurement, or whether they're interfacing with your customers, or they're the communities in your manufacturing, they see 100% of the opportunities. If you engage the front lines and you earn their trust and you give them a process to raise their hand and say, I see something that could make us better, and you get everything out of their way or you get them what they need, and slowly build the trust, and then slowly break down the silos so that different parts of the organization start helping each other and coming together, there is more opportunity than you can believe. And there's more than these folks believe is possible. So the engagement of the front lines, and we didn't use the word bottom because nobody wants to be at the bottom of an organization, is the single greatest opportunity to release value that I've ever seen in my career. But it means switching from command and control and Jack Welch GE type deliver, or we'll get someone who can, over to an entirely different structure, which is I trust that the front lines know where the money is. And my job as a manager is to get them what they need, or escalate what they need up to somebody who can get it for them. It's insanely powerful. And I just can't tell you how big of a paradigm shift it was for me. Thanks.
And so, by the way, the experience Chris had and others are like this. What we've found is, and we've got like real life data now to show this, and you guys all get this, right? When you actually engage the people, right, and you focus on the culture change and the change management, and you take equal care of the people side and the performance side whenever you do a transformation, our data, and this is real life data, has showed you actually get about twice the value literally twice the impact when you take care of both. And so that's, incredibly, incredibly important. Bill made the comment earlier this morning, right? If you run the place better, you'll get better results. It's not that you get better results, therefore people think you've run it better. It really does matter.
And if you run it better, it'll keep running better. Whereas if you go in and just whack a bunch of cost out, it'll snap back a year or two later.
All right. We have to stop there, don't we?
Well, the next session starts in 5 minutes.
Okay.
The keynote, so this is their only chance to use the restroom before.
All right, so I'm not going to go through slides. We'll share them if I'm sure they'll be available somewhere. But if you had questions or comments.
No, I just want to make a comment. And I found this experimental, you always read about it, you have experienced it, right? But I found this to be a really great way to learn what
Good.
you are trying, what you wanted to convey. And I think it's just, as we get more senior in the organization, we do less and less of this. And we therefore, I think, are really losing touch. And so this was, for me, this was really
Good.
valuable, so I just want to express that.
We took a bit of a gamble. We were like, we're going to do this SMED game and see what happens. It's fun, right? Good.
What is the name of the game?
The SMED, it's actually a lean tool, single minute exchange of die. So it's actually a lean teaching tool.
Yet another acronym we should not
Yeah,
remember.
sorry. But thank you for that. I think it was actually the exact conversation Sebastian and I had, which is, well, we can come in and talk about frontline culture and frontline culture change and how you do it, and it's all in theory. Let's actually allow them to create their own frontline culture in 30 minutes and feel what it's like. And so thank you, because you actually did it.
Thank you all.